common fears that most of us have faced at some point in life is the fear of love. Yes, the fear of love. Well, I'm here to tell you all the truth, which is that if you love anyone, anyone at all, any type of love, you will at some point get hurt. What? I'm not supposed to say that, right? This is a positive, uplifting channel. This is a spiritual channel, right? So I shouldn't say things like that. But it's the truth. If you love anyone, at some point you will experience hurt. Okay, I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that in just a moment. We're going to dive a bit deeper into that. But before I get into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Pangea North Star. I am an empath, a Reiki healer, a sound therapist, a teacher, a seeker. I love to share along the lines of attracting love energy into our lives, right? So tonight we're going to talk about expanding beyond the fear of love and the love of fear, okay? Greetings, Shanae. Greetings, Shanae. As you all come into the room, please give me a big hello and let me know who's here. You all, tonight, again, our topic is expanding beyond the fear of love and the love of fear, okay? So, y'all, I've been trying to come on and go live with this topic for the last 2 weeks, but let me tell you, these last 2 weeks have been one of the hardest phases of my life. Some of the scariest times that I've ever experienced have occurred within the last 2 weeks or more, right? Almost 3 weeks now. I have had some serious family things going on. One of my parents had a life-threatening issue come up. And then one of my children, my adult children, had a life-threatening experience happen as well. So I've been wanting to connect with you all, but I had some family things to tend to, right? Some ways in which I was needed to support my family. Everyone's okay now. I do want to share that with you. Everyone is recovering, right, and out of the woods, so to speak. But I really believe that some of these things needed to play out before I came in and shared this topic with you, okay? Because this leads me right back into what I was saying. If you love anyone, you are going to get hurt. You are going to experience pain, okay? There is an inextricable relationship between love and pain. And we naturally fear pain as humans, right? We spend a lot of our life trying to avoid painful situations, all right? But if you love anyone, you will experience pain, you will experience hurt. Why? Because we are humans, right? Scary things happen in life. Um, you are going to experience pain as well as you are going to cause someone pain. It's just part of the deal, okay? You're going to disappoint someone. Someone's going to disappoint you. They're not going to live up to your expectations, right? You are going to go through hurtful times with that person. You're going to experience challenges together that are going to at some point hurt. It's going to hurt. Okay, it doesn't matter what type of love we're talking about. It could be romantic love. It could be your relationship with your parent, a relationship with your child, a relationship with a friend, right? But if we go through our entire lives never allowing ourselves to be vulnerable to the possibility that we could experience some pain, you'll never experience even the smallest modicum of love. It won't happen. Okay? And love is what we are here to experience. Love of all kinds. Love in all of its forms. Okay? So love is a healer. Love expands us. we grow and we become greater versions of ourselves through experiencing love. Okay. So it's necessary, guys, that we face that risk, right? So many of us suffer from this fear, and it is completely logical, actually. The fear of love is a logical, completely logical fear. This is actually the fear of vulnerability, the fear of pain, fear of not being enough, fear of ending up alone, all these different fears all wrapped up into one as the fear of love. Okay. And as a result of that fear, we often return to the love of fear. Okay. The love of fear. And we're going to get into that, the love of fear, a little bit later. Okay. But let's talk about the fear of love. Okay. And you're going to see me kind of look down a little bit at my notes here. I have a little bit of notes that I wrote down to make sure I get to some major points. But these are primarily heart chakra blockages that we're talking about, y'all, today. Primarily heart chakra blockages. There are some root chakra and sacral chakra and some other blockages weaved into there. And I'll try to remember to mention those as we get into those others. But we're primarily talking from the perspective of the heart chakra today, okay? This is a chakra through which we experience our biggest expansions, okay? Now, the fear of love is more likely to have a grip on you, a grip on your life, if you did not grow up in a warm, loving home where you felt safe, encouraged, and supported in your childhood. Okay? We kind of know this, right? This is things we kind of know, right? You'll have a tendency to gravitate towards an appearance of love that mimics that same rejection or abandonment or anxiety, danger, inconsistency, lack of expression, lack of support, or whatever that particular brand of dysfunction was that you were experiencing in your home in your early childhood. Okay, we will tend to gravitate toward those things in our adult life because they mimic the feeling that we got at home. Okay, the familiarity of home. We tend to gravitate toward that which is familiar, even if that thing that is familiar is total chaos, even if that thing is hurtful, even if that thing is unfulfilling, we still will gravitate toward the vibration, the energy of whatever was in our home when we were growing up. It's just human nature, okay? So if we don't work to resolve those traumas that we experienced growing up of not getting what we need, a warm and loving environment, then we're going to be drawn toward those same things that give us that same type of feeling because it's familiar. Okay. And if this is the case, when you are presented with a type of love that is supportive, that is well-rounded, that is robust, that is compassionate, that is, unconditional, we will tend to either be oblivious to it, will tend to be just not even intrigued, not interested, not attracted, right? Or just in some other way, non-responsive, not receptive, not welcoming to this type of love. And in most cases, most commonly, a reaction that we would have is fear. Okay? It's fear because it is unfamiliar. Okay? So one of the reasons that we fear love is because we can sense that this makes us vulnerable, right? We sense that there is an opportunity, there's a chance here that we could get hurt, okay? If You have never experienced feeling safe, feeling supported, having someone believe in you, having someone invest in you, right? That is unfamiliar territory. And many times, our brain is kind of making this quick calculation that it would be worse to receive that type of love and then have it snatched away, to receive it and then lose it. Right? Does this make sense to you guys? Give me some hearts in the chat if that makes sense to you. Give me some fire in the chat if that sounds familiar to you. Our brain is making this quick calculation that, I'm going to stay here where it's safe, where things are familiar, because see, I know how to survive with doing everything on my own. I know how to survive with being alone, not depending on anyone, right? I know how to survive with having a shallow depth to all of my friendships, family relationships, or love relationships, right? That's familiar. I know how to do that. I know how to be hyper independent, right? I know how to be tough, right? I know how to keep this guard up. I know how to carry this weight, carry the whole world on my shoulders. That I know how to do. How to depend on someone else and come to actually have an emotional need for that other person, that's unfamiliar, that's scary, right? And as we know, when we are afraid, thank you for the hearts in the chat. I see that, right? This this is the story of our lives. For many people, right? Myself included, right? What we tend to do is stay in the familiarity of the dysfunction. Right? That is the tendency of most people. When we become afraid, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. Right? We've heard this so many times. What does that look like when you're afraid of love? Right? Well, the fight could be total denial, right? Pushing that person away, saying, nope, 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 I'm not going to let you love me. I'm not going to let you be there for me. I'm going to deny my feelings, right? I'm going to tell all my friends that, I don't really care for you that much. Or it could even be manipulating the situation, right? Because you're fighting the vulnerability of actually letting someone love you or loving them. So in order to regain control, this is where the term falling in love, we've all heard that falling in love. What does that indicate? When you fall, you're not in control of yourself, right? Which is a scary feeling. If you've ever fallen, and we've all fallen physically at some point, on the way down, you're thinking, oh my God, oh my God, right? All the way down. You falling, it feels like you're going in slow motion. You're thinking, oh crap, especially if you're over 30. No one should fall after the age of 30, right? It's a totally different situation. You're not bouncing back up, okay? Everything is happening in slow motion. You're thinking, oh no, I'm going to break something vital. And falling in love can feel the same way. You're thinking, oh my God, what is happening here? Something vital within myself, within my emotional body, is going to get hurt. I'm feeling vulnerable right now. Okay. So that fight can look like struggling to regain control, trying to manipulate that person into reassuring you and reassuring you and reassuring you that they really love you, they're really going to be there, they're never going to leave you, um, whatever the case may be. That they're going to do whatever you want them to do, that they're going to love you, show their love in the way that you want them to show you that they love you, right? And sometimes those ways that we're asking the person to show us that they love us can be unreasonable. If it's coming from a place of trauma, sometimes those requests are unreasonable. Okay, we got to stop and think about that. Okay, because this fight can take over your senses. It can take over your ability to think clearly, right? So we're just kind of scrambling to regain a sense of control, and sometimes you just might like lose it and have expectations that's not reasonable. You can become very demanding. Okay, what about the flight? Flight can be just totally unplugging, right? It can be totally just pushing the person away, breaking up with them, just like, I can't handle this, just totally disengaging, right? Some of us have done this or been on the receiving end of this, where someone ghosts you or you ghost someone right when the relationship is getting deeper, right when, the feelings are getting deeper and there becomes a feeling of attachment, somebody takes flight. It may be you, it may be the other person. But many of us, most of us, have experienced this at some point. It's like, man, things were going so good. Then all of a sudden, boom, it's over. And it's kind of like, I'm going to leave you before you leave me. That type of thing. I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. I'm going to disengage before I get hurt. That's flight. If you've experienced this or even done this to someone, give me some hearts in the chat. I know I have some heartbreakers. I know I got some heartbreakers in the chat, right? Maybe recovering heartbreakers in the chat, right? Well, now in my younger years, I did this. I would do that. I would just totally disengage, totally ghost a person, dump a person because I felt like, oh, I'm getting too attached. And that is scary. Okay. What about freeze? What about freeze? What can freeze look like? Freeze can look like I'm here, right? But I'm not taking any steps to deepen my investment, my engagement with this person. And it may be that I'm here and I'm just soaking up, you know, the love and the interest, the support that this person is giving me, but I'm unable to express that I also, love this person, support this person, want to keep this person in my life. And you may have been the person that has done this. May have been the frozen person, or you may have been on the receiving end. You may be with someone who's unable to express themselves. This one I'm talking about a heart chakra blockage and a throat chakra blockage. Okay, where a person is unable to express, unable to allow those feelings to rise to the surface. Okay, that's what a freeze would look like in a relationship. And it's like, okay, this person keeps, if you're on the receiving end of this, you may feel like, okay, this person keeps on coming around me. They keep calling me, they keep spending time with me, but I cannot get them to verbalize, to express how they really feel. Okay, this person may be saying, oh, I'm not ready for a relationship, but yet they're doing all the things that come along with a relationship. They want your time, they want your affection, right? They want your intimacy. They want to go places and do things with you. They want to take up your time. But what they're saying verbally is, oh, I'm not ready for a relationship, right? that becomes very confusing. It becomes very confusing. And on that one, I would definitely say at some point a choice has to be made, right? You can only allow a person to soak up all your time and your energy and your affection without giving it back, right? Without going there with you, without being vulnerable with you. Okay. And if you know that you're truly not ready, the kind thing to do, the fair thing to do is to let it go. If you know there's some more healing that you need to do, before really being able to actively love someone, the kind thing to do is to not string them along, not just soak up all the benefits without giving them what they need in return. The kind thing to do is to let them go, right? But if you're in a situation like that with someone and you're the one that's giving and giving and giving and you're not receiving that in return, how do you be kind to yourself? Y'all tell me in the chat, what are some ways that you can be kind to yourself? If you've ever experienced this, I want us to think about this. What are some ways that you can be kind to yourself if you're finding yourself giving and giving and giving in a relationship with someone that you're like, man, I think that this person cares about me, but they're not able to express it. They're not able to allow those feelings to rise to the surface, right? The kindest thing that you can do for yourself is to express clearly what your needs are. And if that person is not able to reciprocate, right? If they're not able to actively love you in return, you may have to make a choice to change the parameters of that relationship. Okay. And I'm being very intentional in what I'm saying. Changing the parameters of the relationship, changing the shape of the relationship. Okay. You may have to go to a place in that relationship where you're just friends. Okay. And I'm saying that because what I don't want to say is force yourself to unlove them. Okay. Because that's what many of us do. That's what many of us have been taught to do. Is that you must force yourself to unlove this person. You can hurt yourself like that. You can hurt yourself like that. And I mean emotionally hurt yourself like that. Forcing yourself to hate somebody, what we tend to do is find something about them and make a big deal out of it, pick them apart, and find a reason why they're actually this awful person when you really love this person. And they're not an awful person, they're just a hurt person, right? They could just be emotionally unavailable. That's a very trending topic, right? But it could be that not that they're just unavailable, but they truly don't know themselves on an emotional level. So they can't convey to you how they feel because they don't know for themselves how they feel, right? So you don't have to convince yourself that this person is a bad person, that they're a liar, that they're selfish, or whatever the case may be, that they don't love you. You don't have to tell yourself that, okay? There's no need to do that. But you can tell yourself the truth that, hey, I love this person. They're unable to meet me here in a space of love. Therefore, I'm going to stop trying to forcibly extract this type of love from this person because they're unable to reciprocate. But don't lie to yourself and tell yourself, oh, everything they ever told me was a lie. They were just pretending, you know, to love me so they could benefit from being in my world. If that's not an absolute fact, don't tell yourself that. Because what will happen if you do that is when you are presented with a person who can love you, who does love you, who is able to express that, and you've told yourself the lie that that this last person just did you oh so wrong, treated you badly, treated you poorly, lied to you, backstabbed you, abandoned you, or whatever the case may be. If you've told yourself that, then how do you trust this new situation that actually is legitimate? How do you trust your own judgment, right? In this new situation, when you're sensing that this new person loves you. If you lied to yourself and told yourself a bunch of awful things in order to force yourself to unlove somebody that you do love, So you confuse yourself. You've confused your ability to trust yourself by doing that. Greetings, everyone coming in the chat. Please say hello as you come in. We are talking about expanding beyond the fear of love and the love of fear. So if you have told yourself that the last person was deceiving you, then you're in essence telling yourself that your instincts, your sense, your discernment that this last person did love you, that discernment was wrong. When in fact, that discernment was not wrong. It's not that they don't care about you. They don't really like you. They just don't know how to express. They don't know how to reciprocate love. Okay? So the key, you guys, is not to force yourself to hate somebody, or as I said previously, to unlove someone that you do love. The trick is to put that relationship in a proper perspective. Like, okay, I love this person. They're a great person. However, they have some healing they need to do, right? And I need to identify what in that person is a mirror for me. What are they reflecting to me about myself? Oh, they're reflecting my own fear of experiencing love. Greetings, Dabney. Greetings. Thank you for joining us tonight. So when you stop and you evaluate that, man, that person really has a fear of being vulnerable with their feelings, where am I holding that same fear? What in my aura, what in my vibrational field, my biomagnetic field, what is there here that's unresolved for me that attracted someone who's unable to express their love for me? Where am I holding in my expression? Where am I not being completely honest and upfront and expressive of who I am? Where am I fearful, right? Resolve that. Resolve that. Okay? Work on that. Work on healing that. Confront that. Okay? So that you don't continue to attract people that are afraid of love. Okay? So you don't have to force yourself to stop loving that person, loved ones, right? You don't have to do that. The trick is to expand your heart so that you can still hold love for them, but also know, hey, I have to move on. I have to move on and love someone who can love me back. Okay? So if that makes sense to you, give me some fire in the chat. I know that's a tall order, but y'all, if you go around forcing yourself to unlove and distrust and painting every person who wasn't able to love you back the way you want to be loved, you go around painting them as the bad guy, you're eventually not even going to be able to trust yourself. And you won't be able to trust yourself when you do come across someone who can love you properly. Now, this new person who actually loves you properly, loves you truly, and is able to reciprocate love. Now they have all these walls and old traumas and stuff to try to get through to get to your heart, right? And a healthy person, a person who's really loving you from a place of feeling secure within themselves, they're loving you from a healed place and not from a place of neediness, and insecurity. They're only going to be willing to go through so much. They're not going to like debase themselves and degrade themselves and let you beat them up, let you put them through all this, manipulation and making them prove this and prove that. They're not going to go through all that with you. They're not going to do it because they will be able to recognize that, hey, I love this person, but they're not able to reciprocate that love. Okay? So fear of love is what we're talking about tonight, y'all. And our most common tendency is to go to whatever our default method was in our household when we were growing up, because most often we are experiencing this fear of love. I'm talking about actual love, real deal love, compassionate, unconditional, right? All encompassing, supportive love. That will feel really unfamiliar and scary to us when um, we are presented with that in real life, when we encounter that in real life, if we did not grow up in that safe, loving, supportive environment where we were seen and heard. Okay? So if you grew up in an environment where you were not seen and heard, where you were not supported, where you felt safe, where you could be all of yourself and not feel judged, right? Not be attacked. If you grew up in an environment where it was kind of like a cold, I'm not saying that your family didn't love you, but it could be a cold, tough, hard kind of love. Like, I love you, but I'm not able to show it. I'm not, sometimes our parents are not affectionate. Sometimes our parents are like, well, I'll feed and clothe you. You know, I put a roof over your head. That means I love you. And maybe that's the totality of what they knew how to do because they themselves were not raised in a balanced environment, right? So you could have been, had parents that loved you, but their love was cold. It was limited. The expression of that love was limited. If that makes sense, give me some hearts in the chat, right? If you were raised in that type of environment, you had some type of default survival method. And I'm talking about psychological survival, okay? Give me some hearts in the chat if this makes sense. You may have been the child that pleased everyone. You may have become a people pleaser. You may have been a child that never expressed their own needs because there was no room for your emotions in that household. You may have learned that your needs will go unanswered, unmet, abandoned, rejected, ignored. You may have had a parent that was like really, if you had a parent that was like really angry, that had a lot of rage, or they were unstable with their emotions. They were, depressed and like a woe is me type of personality, right? And their emotion just sucked all the air out of the room. You may have learned that there's no room for you to have emotions, for you to have needs. Everything is all about the drama going on in the household. So you may have made yourself quiet. You may have made yourself disappear. You may have made yourself invisible to not add to the chaos in the home. You may have learned to lash out, right? You may have learned to fight back, to say hurtful things, right? Or to pull away emotionally, to be cold, to be callous, to defend yourself. All these things are about psychological survival. So when we learn that as a young child, we learn these coping mechanisms. You may have learned to manipulate to get your way, right? You may have learned that, hey, if I, only reveal part of the truth, but conceal this other part of the truth, I can get the people around me to cater to my needs and get my way that way. Right? So if that's what you learned in your childhood, you'll revert back to that same, whatever your default survival method is, you will revert to that in relationships also. Okay? And these are some of the ways that we go into fight, flight, or freeze in our love relationships as adults. Okay? But all of these are ways of preventing ourselves from being vulnerable, from taking that risk of being hurt in love. Okay. And we're talking a lot about romantic relationships, but this also applies to friendships. It can apply to your family love relationships. That some of us don't even know how to fully bond with our family members, right? We don't trust it because we feel like at any minute that person may turn around and do something hurtful to us. So we keep people at arm's length, keep people at bay, right? Okay, so guys, fear of love. Okay, I think we've pretty much covered that one. Okay, we have to expand beyond that. We have to examine our traumas and challenge ourselves to expand our heart chakras by healing, right? And daring to go beyond our norm. Okay. Now, what about the love of fear? Now, this one you don't hear too much. The love of fear. What our topic tonight is expanding beyond the fear of love and the love of fear. What is the love of fear? Well, earlier we talked about things that we default to, right? Methods of protecting ourselves that we default to. Whatever is our normal, it's just like your knee-jerk reaction, your reaction that you go to in circumstances without even thinking about. Okay? So when I'm talking about the love of fear, if you're in a room full of people, could be friends or strangers or whatever, and you were to express that you have a fear of love, chances are someone else in that room is going to also chime in and say, yeah, man, love is scary, right? Love is scary. Falling in love is scary. That is a common sentiment. It is a common fear. Okay. And you will get a lot more people to agree with you, just offhand, agree with you about love being scary. You'll get more people to agree with you on that sentiment than there are people that will agree with you if you say, hey, we got to love freely, take that chance. Who cares if you get hurt? Just go for it. Just love. Just be openly loving, right? Go for it. Take that chance. The love of fear is a common place that we huddle to. Fear of taking a risk is extremely common. When people are fearful, when people are afraid, if there's a crowd of people that's afraid, right, they're going to huddle together, right? Depending on the environment. If you're in a situation where you can't run, let's say that if the option of running is eliminated, people who are afraid, say there was a gunman in the room, people who are afraid will huddle together, right? This is creating a false sense of safety, a false sense of security. When you go into fear, you can always find somebody to be afraid with you. You can always find somebody that's going to agree with you when you say you are afraid of something. When you are afraid of taking a risk, you're afraid of taking a new challenge, you're afraid of investing time, money, energy. It's easy to find somebody that will agree with you on that. So energetically, we tend to huddle together in fear. If you don't believe me, the next time you're in a crowd of people or just a room, just say you 4 or 5 people for a social gathering, I dare you to make a statement like, boy, we sure do we sure do live in scary times, don't we? There are some scary things happening in the world today, aren't there? And you'll hear, oh man, there sure are. Oh my God, this is happening, that's happening. And everybody starts chiming in about how scary things are, right? And think about it. If someone tells you something bad is happening for them, right? Our natural way of empathizing with people is to mirror what they're feeling. If somebody tells you, oh, this bad happened to me this week, yada, 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 and they go down the list of bad things that have happened for them recently, do you respond like, well, things have been great for me, man. Things have just been awesome. I mean, all my dreams, my wildest dreams are coming true. I've had such good stuff happen for me lately. I just don't even know where it's coming from. No, you don't respond that way. Even if wonderful things are happening for you, you're more likely to think of some way that you can relate to their fear, to their pain, and you're going to mirror that back to them. Yeah, I had something similar happen to me like that. I can remember when that happened to me, or something happened to me recently, or somebody I know. You're going to mirror that back to them because what you're trying to communicate to them is you're not alone. You're not alone. Something about being afraid together, somehow it lessens the fear a little bit. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me some hearts in the chat. It's one thing to be afraid and alone. But when you're afraid with somebody, somehow that's comforting. It's comforting, right? So we have this love affair with fear. We have this association of comfort with fear, where we're comfortable being afraid. It's a familiar place, and there's always someone there that's willing to be afraid with you. It's real easy to get someone to agree with you in fear. Think about it, okay? So we have this love affair with fear, where we return to a fearful place when we're confronted with something that's unfamiliar, that's unsure, that makes you feel a little bit insecure, okay? And guys, this is universal and this is ancient, okay? This is ancestral, okay? So back when people were living, in villages, and there was some danger. It could be a warring tribe or a wild animal. People would hide and huddle together. There was safety in numbers. We've all heard that term, right? Give me some fire in the chat if you've ever heard that term. There's safety in numbers. People huddle together to create a sense of security, whether it's real security or a false sense of security. Okay? So our challenge is to be able to recognize that that is a root chakra blockage. Okay? That's dealing with not only the heart, but the root chakra. The root chakra deals with safety and security. Okay? Greetings, Miss Fortitude. Greetings. So that is a root chakra blockage that we revert to our fearful behaviors, right? And we get people to agree with us that yes, this is scary. And it doesn't matter what you're afraid of. It could be love or something, financial, the political climate, whatever. But our natural instinct is to get more people to come in and to come into agreement with us on this basis of fear. That yes, this is scary. Yes, you're justified in your flight, fight, or freeze response that you're having there. Okay? You're justified in being afraid of being vulnerable. Sacral chakra blockage. Okay, your sacral chakra has to do with sensuality, vulnerability, connection. Right? You want people to tell you you're right to be afraid to trust your instincts, to trust your discernment. Right? You're right to throw up all your walls and block this situation out, block out the risk. So I'm encouraging you, I'm inviting you, right, to examine those root chakra, those sacral chakra, those heart chakra blockages. Stop and ask yourself, hey, where is this coming from? This feeling of feeling threatened by someone loving me, by someone making me feel warm inside. Why does that feel threatening? What cellular memory is being triggered by this experience? So, you all, if you have any questions or comments, now's the time to ask your question. If you've ever experienced this fear of love and are now able to recognize, oh man, I also love fear. I've been having this love affair with fear. I return to fear instead of allowing my heart to open, allowing my heart space to expand, right? Always lean toward expansion, okay? Even if it means, hey, I have to expand my heart in such a way that I'm choosing to love this person as a friend because they cannot love me back as a romantic partner, right? Or I'm gonna just love this family member as a human, just at a human level, and show compassion to them as a human, and not try to depend on them to love me back and to reciprocate that. I'm just gonna give you a humanitarian type of love until you heal that, until you stop lashing out at me, until you stop betraying me, until you stop treating me like an enemy. See, what we need to do, what's healthier to do, is to expand the heart, to hold love, hold space for that person, right? But reshape, reformat, put a new perspective on that relationship. That way, your heart is still open to receive when that capable, unconditional love does come your way. Okay? Resist the temptation to completely shut down your heart. Resist the temptation to force yourself to unlove people because they can't love you back. You can reshape that love. Okay? You can get a new perspective on that love. You can love them from over here. Love them from over there. Right? It doesn't have to be this close up. You have all access to my heart anymore. Doesn't mean I don't love you. Just means I'm not going to love you in a way that's unhealthy for me. Okay? So thank you all. I don't see any questions coming in the chat tonight, but I do thank you all for your comments, for your support. I see the hearts and the fire in the chat. Thank y'all for joining me for yet another live conversation. Expand beyond the fear of love and the love of fear. And I will check in with you guys prayerfully next week. We'll be back on Tuesday again. I do thank you all for all your prayers, your love, and your support and your encouragement. And everyone have a wonderful week. Peace.